A video appears to show Ukrainian Marines striking multiple vehicles in a Russian armored column using US-made javelins, according to the brigade. As the weapons strike, tanks and other armored vehicles explode and catch fire. One tank is seen returning fire before it is struck and immobilized, smoke billowing from it. At one point in the video, 3 desperate Russian soldiers can be seen jumping out of a burning vehicle and running away from it. Near the end of the video, one of the blazing vehicles blows up, causing a massive explosion. It is not clear when the video was filmed. A Facebook post by the brigade said it was filmed in the Donetsk region in eastern Ukraine. According to Business Insider news site, through comparison of satellite images, it is possible to determine that the video was shot in the village of Vodiane in Donetsk. Russia did not comment on the clip. Both the US and NATO have sent javelins, along with other anti-tank weapons, to Ukraine following Russia's invasion. The US has supplied 8,500 Javelin anti-tank missiles to Ukraine, according to a Forbes report in December 2022. Meanwhile, according to The Guardian, Russian unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, attacked the strategic port of Odessa in Ukraine, local authorities said on the morning of April 4. Russia has deployed UAVs to attack Odessa. Damage has been recorded, the local authorities said in a statement on Facebook, quoting the head of the Odessa military authorities, Yuri Kruk. Ukrainian air defenses are strengthening their defense and warning of the possibility of a second attack. Russia has not yet commented on Ukraine's announcement. The commander of the joint forces, Lieutenant General Serhiy Naiv, assured Ukrainians that the defense and security forces in the northern operational zone are in constant combat readiness, fully prepared for an adequate response to any incursions. Naiv's announcement came in the context of Russia's demand to deploy nuclear weapons to Belarus, and speculation that Russia would advance from Allied territory. In the latest war update video, Naiv said, "Our intelligence is monitoring the situation related to the combat readiness check in the armed forces of the Republic of Belarus. We have full information on the movement of weapons and military equipment within the framework of the specified inspection. Our defense and security forces in the northern operational zone are on constant alert and are always ready for an adequate response," said Naiv. As reported, in Belarus, on the instructions of the self-proclaimed President Alexander Lukashenko, the Army Command began a combat readiness check in the armed forces. State Security Committee, KGB, head Ivan Tertel revealed on Tuesday. Belarusian security services have recently detained a number of citizens of Poland and the Baltic states who were suspected of carrying out undercover operations on Belarusian soil. The comments came as the KGB head was meeting with President Alexander Lukashenko and Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service, SVR, Chief Sergei Naryshkin in Minsk on Tuesday. Tertel added that recently, the KGB recorded a notable increase in spying and subversive activities against Belarus. Tertel claimed that the KGB has also detained dozens of Ukrainian citizens who have been accused of attempting to commit terrorist attacks and carry out reconnaissance, subversive and espionage activities. He also stated that Poland is now trying to achieve an exchange for one of these citizens by any means. However, Tertel noted that none of the persons detained by Polish authorities, who allegedly worked for Belarusian security services, have any connections to the KGB. He added that Kiev has since turned to Minsk with a proposal to exchange these citizens, but noted that Belarus does not need any of the people the Ukrainian side has offered up. The official also stated that the KGB expects a serious escalation in the region in the coming months, and that it has registered a number of militant training camps in Poland, Ukraine, the Czech Republic and the Baltic states of Lithuania and Latvia. "We know exactly all the recruitment points, we know who is doing it, we know their training camps, and personally know the instructors as well as who is being trained in this regard and at what stage in their training they are," Tertel said. According to the KGB chief, these forces plan to carry out terrorist activities this spring on the territory of Belarus. He noted that Minsk is currently trying to bring these destructive elements to justice using international mechanisms. Russian investigators on Tuesday, April 4, formally charged Daria Trepova, a 26-year-old woman with terrorism offenses over the killing of pro-war military blogger Vladlen Tatarsky in a bomb blast in St. Petersburg. Trepova arrived at Moscow's Baumani court on Tuesday afternoon, after being transferred from St. Petersburg to the Russian capital. Prosecutors were expected to ask the district court to remand her in pre-trial detention. Tatarsky, a cheerleader for Russia's military campaign in Ukraine whose real name was Maxim Fomin, was killed on Sunday, April 2, when an explosion ripped through a cafe where he was due to talk. Russia's investigative committee, which probes major crimes, said it had charged Trepova with committing a terrorist act by an organized group that caused intentional death. It said she had acted under instructions from people working on behalf of Ukraine. U.S. Secretary of State and NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg congratulated Finnish Foreign Minister Pekka Haavisto, Tuesday, April 4, as his country was officially welcomed in the North Atlantic Treaty. Finland and Sweden asked to join NATO last year in response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine after a process that took more than a year. Helsinki officially entered the Western Union, while Stockholm's application has yet to be approved by Turkey and Hungary. Turkey has repeatedly said that Sweden needed to take additional steps against supporters of Kurdish militants and members of the network Ankara holds responsible for a 2016 coup attempt. Finnish Defense Minister Antti Kaikkonen said his country joining NATO on Tuesday, April 4, represented a big day for Finland, adding Helsinki's focus would now be for Sweden to become a part of the alliance. Finland has a 1,300 kilometers (810-mile) border with Russia, meaning NATO's frontier with Russia will roughly double in length. British Foreign Minister James Cleverly said ahead of the NATO meeting that the Scandinavian country's accession was the direct result of Vladimir Putin's aggression and his illegal invasion of Ukraine. Ukraine Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba said he hoped his country would move along the same path soon. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu said on Tuesday, April 4, that Finland's accession to the NATO military alliance and NATO's move to increase its own combat readiness increased the risk of conflict. But he said it would not affect the outcome of what Russia calls its special military operation in Ukraine. Russia says one of the reasons why it sent its armed forces into Ukraine in February 2022 was to counter a threat from what it said were Western plans to use Ukraine as a platform to threaten Russia. Kyiv and NATO countries reject this argument. Shoigu said Russia was also taking practical steps to boost the nuclear strike potential of its close ally Belarus. In response, he said some Belarusian military jets were now capable of carrying nuclear warheads, and that Russia had sent Iskander rocket systems, which can carry conventional or nuclear missiles, to Belarus. President Vladimir Putin said last month that Russia would station tactical nuclear weapons on the territory of Belarus. As the Nordic country officially joined NATO this afternoon, Ben Wallace released a statement reaffirming the rights of sovereign states. "I am delighted that Finland's application to join NATO has now been approved and I want to welcome the country to the organization," he said. "Let Finland be a lesson to President Putin." Finland chose to join, based on their own free will. The freedom to choose their alliances as a sovereign state is a matter for their citizens and their citizens alone. Meanwhile, in Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky congratulated Finland. NATO became the only effective security guarantee in the region amid Russian aggression. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin visited a railway equipment factory in the industrial city of Tula, located about 180 kilometers from Moscow. On April 4, on the same day, he chaired a meeting with the Federal Council of Russia on the effort to develop the industry, despite the Western sanctions. The Russian leader believes that the country's economy has become more competitive in the face of sanctions and Moscow has quickly adapted to the situation. Putin also pledged to increase wages for workers and reduce inflation, emphasizing that Russia needs to strengthen its technological independence, which is a critical issue we must achieve in the near future. During the visit to the factory and the subsequent meeting, President Putin and officials did not mention Finland's entry into NATO despite the ceremony taking place on April 4 in Brussels. Putin also did not address the Ukraine issue during his visit to the Tula factory. Workers in Warsaw's Old Town were busy with preparations on Tuesday, April 4, an expected visit by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to the Polish capital. An advisor to Poland's President Andrzej Duda told media this week the two presidents would hold talks and Zelensky would meet Ukrainians who have taken refuge in Poland on Wednesday, April 5, at Warsaw's Castle Square. People in Warsaw said they were pleased Zelensky would be visiting and said they expected it was meant as thanks to Poland for accommodating Ukrainian refugees since the beginning of Russia's invasion in February last year. Zelensky last met his Polish counterpart in December 2022 during his trip home from the United States. Poland is Ukraine's neighbor and the two countries have deep historical ties. Many Ukrainians fled their country after Russia's invasion, with a large number seeking safety in Poland. U.S. President Joe Biden's administration announced an additional package of military aid to Ukraine totaling $2.6 billion on Tuesday. It is the 35th drawdown of U.S. equipment for Ukraine since August 2021. The package includes $500 million in drawdown equipment, such as ammunition for high-mobility artillery rocket system, HIMARS, and additional munitions for the Patriot missile system, artillery and mortar rounds, heavy fuel tankers, and tactical recovery vehicles. The administration is also allocating $1 billion in Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative funds, which intend to produce a significant package of air defense capabilities, including air surveillance radars and counter-unmanned aerial system 30mm gun trucks, as well as Javelin anti-armor systems and 23 million rounds of small arms munition. The Pentagon's release announcing the aid on Tuesday reiterated that the U.S. would continue to work with its allies to provide Ukraine with capabilities to meet its immediate battlefield needs and longer-term security assistance requirements. Russia's Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov said on the Rossiya 24 channel on Tuesday. The current condition of relations between Russia and the United States brings to mind only one word: collapse, for which the U.S. is entirely to blame. I will probably describe the current state of these relations with just one word: collapse. The relations are ruined. The responsibility for this rests squarely on the United States, he said. Ryabkov also commented on the suspension of Russia's participation in the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, New START. He recalled that the cardinal change of circumstances, which occurred not through Russia's fault, this is simply a reflection of Washington's fundamentally anti-Russian course, the United States' rejection of Russia's independent, sovereign role in the international arena, and the refusal to perceive us as a state civilization, which is, I think, convincingly stated in detail in the updated foreign policy concept. For this reason, the agreement is suspended, Ryabkov added. On February 21, Russian President Vladimir Putin announced that Moscow was suspending its participation in New START, but not withdrawing from it altogether. He stressed that before resuming discussions on further work under the treaty, the Russian side should have a clear understanding how the arsenals of not only the United States but also those of other NATO nuclear powers, Britain and France, will be counted on. March 1, Putin signed a law suspending Russia's participation in New START. Donald Trump, the former U.S. president and frontrunner for the 2024 Republican nomination, will appear in court on Tuesday, April 4, to be fingerprinted, photographed and formally charged in a watershed moment ahead of next year's presidential election. Trump, 76, is the first sitting or former president to face criminal charges. He was indicted by a Manhattan grand jury last week in a case stemming from a 2016 hush money payment to porn star Stormy Daniels, though the specific charges have yet to be disclosed. Trump has said he is innocent and is due to plead not guilty. Trump, who flew to New York from Florida on Monday, said in a fundraising email sent out on Tuesday morning, "Today, Tuesday, is the day that a ruling political party arrests its leading opponent for having committed no crime. This is not the America you and I have known," Trump added, calling for patriots. "Today let us mourn the demise of justice in America." Meanwhile, a small group protested outside the Manhattan District Court in support of the prosecution of Trump. "This is not a witch hunt, he committed a crime and we know it," said one protester, Lisa Fithian. "We hope that in the end, he will have to accept responsibility." China's foreign ministry said on Tuesday, April 4, that the United States strengthening its military deployment in the Philippines would only lead to more tension and less peace and stability in the region. The office of the Philippine president on Monday, April 3, identified the 4 additional bases the United States will have access to under an existing defense agreement to expand military cooperation. The announcement comes amid concern over China's increasing assertiveness in the South China Sea and tension over Taiwan. The sites under the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, EDCA, will be in Isabela and Cagayan, on the island of Luzon, facing north towards Taiwan, and on Palawan, near the disputed Spratly Islands in the South China Sea. The announcement was made by Manila amid concerns about China's military buildup in the South China Sea, as well as rising tensions in the Taiwan Strait. The EDCA has been stalled, but President Ferdinand Marcos Dash, who came to power in June 2022, has pushed for the implementation of the defense agreement signed with the U.S. Beijing has previously criticized the deal as part of Washington's efforts to encircle and contain China through its military alliance with Manila. New Delhi has released an official rebuke to China's recent unilateral renaming of 11 places in Arunachal Pradesh, a state on the border between India and China that Beijing claims as part of its region of South Tibet. This is the third round of renaming as China standardizes the names of residential areas, which is known in China as Zhangnam. Earlier, on April 2, China announced that standardized names for 11 places in Arunachal Pradesh and gave the exact coordinates, including 2 residential areas, 5 mountain peaks, 2 rivers and 2 other areas. Speaking at a press conference, Indian Foreign Ministry spokesman Arindam Bagchi said that this is not the first time China has named places in Arunachal Pradesh. India completely rejects this. Arunachal Pradesh has been, is and will always be an integral and inseparable part of India, the spokesman said. This is the third time that China has published standardized names for areas in Arunachal Pradesh. Beijing gave the names of 6 sites in Arunachal Pradesh in 2017 and a further 15 in 2021. Officials at Japan's industry ministry say they want to triple sales in the semiconductor sector over the next 7 years. They have seen domestic chipmakers fall behind foreign rivals and watched supply chain disruptions threaten the country's economic security. Ministry officials say Japan needs a stable supply of advanced chips for burgeoning industries like AI and self-driving cars. The country currently depends on imports, especially from Taiwan, but geopolitical tensions make that a risky strategy. Ministry officials showed their new strategy to a panel of experts on Monday. They are aiming for sales worth 15 trillion yen, or over $110 billion, by 2030. They also want to ensure Japanese firms can compete with rivals from Taiwan and South Korea who are preparing to launch advanced 2-nanometer chips. And they propose making more advanced memory chips for smartphones and data centers, as well as high-performance semiconductors for controlling electric vehicles. The ministry wants more than $75 billion in investment from the public and private sector over the next decade to hit these marks. Officials propose working with allies such as the US and the Netherlands on research and development. Video filmed on Tuesday, April 4, by a Reuters-operated drone showed the extent of a train accident in the Netherlands which killed 1 and injured dozens of passengers. The accident happened at about 3:25 a.m. local time, when the night train traveling from Leiden to The Hague derailed, causing the front car to plunge. Rice field. Meanwhile, the collision caused the second carriage to overturn. A small fire broke out but was quickly extinguished. A passenger train rammed into a maintenance crane that stood on the rail tracks, killing the crane operator and injuring passengers as the train derailed and plowed into a field early on Tuesday, officials and local media said. John Vaughan, the CEO of railway infrastructure firm ProRail, said at a news briefing. The maintenance work was planned and standard, but we have no idea how the crane got on the track which was still open for traffic. Rescue teams ferried away the injured in pre-dawn darkness at the scene of the incident in Voorschoten, a village near The Hague. The Dutch Railways Company announced on its Twitter account that there will be no trains running between Leiden and The Hague due to the accident. According to Reuters, at least 20 people have died and several others are missing after a landslide in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. Voltaire Batundi, a civil society leader in the Masisi territory, said that the bodies of 8 women and 13 children have been found following the landslide that occurred on a stream in the Balawa area on April 2. The incident happened while many people were washing clothes and the ground suddenly collapsed. Local resident Desire Mishim said, the landslide occurred at 11:30 a.m. when women and children were washing clothes. All of them were buried. Search efforts are still being deployed on April 3.